whatever comes out of us is formulated from what went in. And that's basically the science and the math. As in, when there's any negativity that's coming up, right? A lot of times, we're taught a lot about, don't say this and don't do this, and things aren't good, but we're not taught how to create that space where there's more purity, and there's that kind of, and the boundaries where we're not consuming. So just like with food, if you're not feeling well and your body's not supporting you, it's usually because of, if there's some kind of consumption, if it's a physical consumption or an energetic consumption, thinking about how we feel when somebody makes us feel bad, right? Or if there's some kind of negativity communicated, what ends up happening is we feel down. It actually physically and emotionally creates a heaviness. And that heaviness is not somebody physically standing on you, but it's an energetic heaviness. And the thing is, for a lot of us, it's just a layer of ourselves that we're not in tune with and aware of. So I'm going to break down some of the science from biogeometry, and then we'll kind of bring it into our topic. And I'll give you some tools in how to be able to apply them into your day-to-day experience. So if we think of the concept of balance, which is something that we spent a lot of time this winter on, with balance and harmony, balance centers things. When we think about anything that's balanced, usually things that are balanced, they last. There's longevity connected to balance. So when we think of what balance actually is, if you think about a scale, right? You have the two sides of a scale, and then you have the center. So you have the two sides, and then you have the center. The two sides are what move, right? So if you have scales, there's the side, there's the polar opposite where one goes up, one goes down, depending on the weight. And then in the center, there's this force for there to be able to have that consistent and steady movement. There has to be that center based. So Dr. Robert Gilbert says, nobody ever died from being balanced. Like, you never hear somebody say, oh, that person died from being too balanced. So when we think about our practice and the practice of our day-to-day, it's to bring balance. It's to bring shalom to the world within our life. And sometimes we have to go from one end, right? And then come back to the other, and then to the other to come back to center. And if we think about like a day like today, which is somewhere where, we're all fasting, what is your life experience or your life quality without food, without even the distraction of food? For a lot of us, we relate to food giving us energy. So a great thing to ask yourself is, what are you feeling on a day like today? Is there less fight, right? Because like when you're well fed and you're strong and you're powerful, what comes up for you when you are when there is no food, when there's a lack of food? What's interesting is we're able to peel back into less distraction and the layers of ourselves, that who are we without food, right? So it's like a piece of ourselves that we're able to reflect on, of who we are without that consumption. And when we think about from that energy perspective, it's like, yes, everything is energy. Everything is energy. And if we're not eating, or we eat too much, everything shifts the frequency of our energy. For some people, On a fast day, they are a lot calmer. They have to be a lot more mindful of their energy itself. Like, so it's things that are really important to notice. For some people, it doesn't bother them at all. And for some people, they're completely out. So just kind of, that's a little bit of a dynamic of when we're talking about frequency and consumption. So when we're trying to create balance and we talk about negativity, right? If we're speaking negatively, what we're doing is we're creating a polar opposite, which is really the essence of destruction, right? Because when we think about negativity is destruction. And when we think about like that physical, the Beis Hamikdash, which is so fascinating that Hashem has created these like physical visuals for us to actually understand our interior. So when we think about negativity, it's always it's a build. It's like a building. It's blocks that we keep, placing. When our energy frequency is in a good place, we first of all attract less negativity. And then also whatever comes out of us is less negative as well. So when we talk about, I'll get a little deeper into it in a second, but when we talk about balance and we talk about being centered, in every center there's a center. So if in every center there's like that point that there's a dot. So if we were going to make a dot on a page and then create a circle around it, everything revolves around the center. And there's like, that's kind of where balance is. In the creation of the world, the sun is the center, earth revolves around the sun. When we think about, and again, that's like the lifeline, one of the greatest lifelines of the world, the earth itself, is the nourishment we get from the sun. And we think if we get a little too close to the sun, the world can burn. If we're too far away, we know that things can freeze, right? Crops, everything literally relies on the sun itself. When we think about our own selves, the center of our being is our neshama, is our sun. And that is so important to know and understand. And for so many of us, we can go through an entire life with not even connecting with our center. And we'll either be too far away or too close. And either we'll feel like our spiritual practice can smother us, suffocate us, or give us this beautiful warmth, or we can feel going the other way of feeling isolated. So it's just understanding that when we understand that our neshama, our soul, is this center, the center of who we are, as soon as we understand that, the focus shifts to the center, where we understand that to create balance in our life, we need to really connect with that center and refine the experience with it. So we're gonna just take a moment to breathe in this space and experience a little bit of this inner center and what it means to you on a day like today. And again, there's no right answer. It's different for every single person. So just taking your hand and placing it on your heart, just to kind of create a little bit of pressure in that interior space. Soften the eyes and begin to inhale through the nose. So oxygen is food for the flame. The flame is your neshama, right? It's like that flame, and it constantly flickers. If there's too much oxygen, it can blow out. And if there's too little, it also goes out. It's always this balance and frequency. So take a moment to just notice where that light is within you, where that warmth is, and notice if you can like calibrate your breath to begin to balance the temperature inside your body. So balance the temperature between the body and the soul. And if the soul was like the sun, that place and the essence of where we get nurturing, what happens if you just sit with it for a moment? So notice if there's light, if there's movement, if there's connection, if there's that vibrance, that sense of safety, that sense of clarity. And just notice what that's like. And when you're ready, you can softly open your eyes and gently relax. So when we think about all the things that are like layers and layers that we wear, they're not only physical layers, they're emotional layers as well. And the neshama has the capacity, right? The soul has this capacity to be able to see like from one end of the world to the other. If we're in a space where we begin to strip away some of the distraction, there's a complete clarity within, just like the sun. It's nurturing, it's the essence, right? But as we begin to like just add, and if a lot of it comes from ego, when we think about physical kind of assets, right? We think of identity and ego. Those are all things that end up really clouding or or disconnecting us. I mean, not really disconnecting us, but it creates a layer between, or a barrier between us and our soul. When we're completely connected and we're like all that stuff is stripped away, there is also this sense of divine unity that comes with center that can really ripple out. So every single one of us, when we're thinking about Mashiach and we're thinking about coming closer to our own personal redemptions, and then an ultimate redemption, it's about being one with the divine, which is this inner divine, but that Hashem gave you, which is your neshama, which really emulates and almost like it gives you the blueprint of how to connect with the physical divine of Hashem and Mashiach. So the thing is if you thought today, like that day, like when we think of our last day on earth, and if I asked you, what are the things that really matter? Like if nothing else mattered and there was only one or two things that mattered, what are the things that you feel are important that you needed to get done or that you were curious about in this world? And on a day that we're not eating, it's a lot easier to kind of step away from appetite. There's so much belief that revolves around like that our value revolves around our status or the next bill that we have to pay or the people that like us or the people that we connect with, the clothes we wear and the assets that we have. And something that I had a conversation with a musician once, because I write music. So that's what we do. And this musician said to me something really powerful. He said that we're kind of exiting an era of assets where it used to be that your value had to do with how much stuff you have. And nowadays, as we get closer to the time of Mashiach, really, it's about access. People want to connect. So it's how fast can you move, right? How fast can you move without having that external weight? So like less clutter in a house, living more of a minimalistic life. And then with being able to do that, you're able to explore other areas, which is if you crave adventure, or you want to go back to school, or connection, whatever that is, the less assets you have, right? So if you have this mansion, for example, and it's full of stuff, and we just keep collecting. I actually met a trainer once. I'll tell you the story. It's a really great story. Really wonderful human. His name is Gabriel. And he taught me some great lessons. But he was working in the industry, and I think like I'd say 30 years ago. And he made a lot of money, and he ended up buying a lot of antiques. So he invested in a crazy amount of antiques. And he probably had a couple $100,000 worth of antiques in his house. And then, like anything else, the market fluctuates. And he went from being extremely successful to losing everything. And he ended up being a homeless man with like about $300,000 worth of antiques that he had to put into a garage, because at some point it gave him value, but then it ended up becoming a real problem. And when we think of that kind of idea, for so many of us, we invest so much in the things around us, and the way we're kind of almost observing that if we're going to do certain things a certain way, that's going to keep us safe, or because of that, we're going to be accepted. Coming back to our topic, right? That's kind of where a lot of, when we talk about Lashon Hara and we talk about Sinas Chinam, a lot of that comes from that space where we're worried that something can hurt us. And that's really the bottom line. So much of what we do is in defense that we should feel accepted and nobody should hurt us. But if we kind of flip the script, and instead of focusing so much on what somebody else might say, what somebody else might think, if we go back to this, this guy that had, $300,000 worth of stuff and no home to live in. For so many of us, we can have so many friends, and we can have even so much money, or we can be in this beautiful world, and then we don't have a home to live in. And I mean a physical home, as in your body and your neshama. We struggle with connecting with that inner home. So when we kind of, and so a lot of times when the negativity is coming out, it's because we're almost saying, I'm homeless. I depend so much on these external factors that to protect those external factors, I need to communicate certain negativities. But when we want to really come to a space of balance and harmony, the only way to do that is from within, is by first connecting with our home, our first home, our body, our soul, right? The soul is housed in this beautiful, beautiful home in our body. And when we think about moving forward in life and we think about what matters, this is the thing we have to ask ourselves. Does this take me away? Does it strip me? Does it kind of take me further away and distract me and create layers between me and my essential home, the spiritual home? Or is it, just, or am I truly connected? So as we move into, because we're in of, and then we're going to go into Elul, it's so important to take that time to really make time for yourself and internalize this sense of safety and love and nurturing. Because when we are completely connected, when we are feeling completely safe, when we are feeling completely watched over, and when we're in a space where we believe nobody can hurt us, there's nothing negative that can come out of our mouth. Because if there's more of that positive anchor, then it helps us with being able to also focus on our real goals. We're not doing things to get accepted or things to further ourselves in whatever way possible. We're mostly focusing on our internal self and on ourselves, and knowing that, like, when we are in a good place, only good things come out of that, because we're nourishing ourselves on that level. And then the energy literally ripples. It encompasses like a sphere. I'm gonna read you exactly his. I'm gonna read you Dr. Robert's words exactly, because it's I can't deliver it any other way. So he says like this: there is a divine unity in the center that ripples out. It encompasses like a sphere, a container that contains energy and consciousness. And at the end of the day, the more conscious we want to be, the more we want to focus on our positive frequency, the more we want to connect to our soul. The only way to do it is to notice what you're taking in, but also connecting with that inner light and allowing that to guide you. So just noticing, what are the spiritual practices that can help you connect? And then going back to that thought of, like, on your last day on earth, what matters to you then? And making sure that your body is the home, and you're not abandoning that home. You're not abandoning the soul, which encompasses, the essence of the home. And really, truly, the only way for us to even understand or comprehend Mashiach, or bringing a geula here, is by really, really being able to connect with ourselves first. So thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope you all have a beautiful, beautiful day. I'll leave it open because I have some time, so I could take some questions. But I'm going to ask you all, with the phone line, we have to renew it, and it costs about $1,000 to pay for it. I was trying to get the numbers. Hopefully I'll have the numbers soon of how many hours were listened to, but there's many, 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 many hours. And this practice helps so many people. Everything I do is free because I believe so much in this work, in this practice. So if anyone can contribute, that will be a huge, huge help. Think about the way I say it is, think about it as one therapy session. That's it. Just think about it that way. And then you get to be part of the schos of this growing community of amazing, amazing human beings that are really dedicating themselves to this transformational work. And the stories that come out of here are just incredible. And I'm so grateful to you. So thank you so much for joining today.